Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. I'm Colin, and today we're doing my top 5 albums of 2024. Alrighty, 2024, man. What a year it has been. My daughter turned 3. I saw some awesome concerts, and we got a ton of great music. Now, it was a little hard for me to whittle down my list for my honorable mentions, but my top 5 have been locked in for a while now. Honestly, there's been some good albums that have come out since, and one fairly recent album did knock one out of the top 5 into the honorable mentions. But for the most part, there's like 3 or 4 albums even that the minute I heard them, I knew they were going to be in my top 5. Like, they just had such an immediate impact on me. Few of them I've done reviews on. I'll put links to those in the description. A couple of them I haven't done reviews on, and there's a various number of reasons for that. One of them, it came out way before I had actually officially started my channel. One was out actually when I was doing my channel, but I didn't discover it until like a week after it was released. But yeah, all of these albums I thought were incredible. Again, guys, just a few ground rules. These are just my top 5, so they're not necessarily what I think are objectively the best albums of the year. I think there might be a couple out there that, from a pure songwriting and engineering standpoint, are maybe a little bit better, but just didn't resonate with me quite as much. So before we get into the top 5, let's go over my honorable mentions. First and foremost is going to be Eye to the Ear by Cosmo Sheldrake. Now, if you're not familiar with Cosmo Sheldrake, you need to go check him out. He is an incredibly unique musician, sample artist, electronic artist, improvisational artist out of England. He does this weird like mix of Baroque pop and electronic music, and he incorporates a lot of like natural sounds into his music. So he's got an album that's made like entirely from bird calls. He's got another album that's made entirely from like ocean sounds. But this was his second like full length album that was just like straight up music. Like, him just not restricting himself to a theme or a concept. And it's absolutely incredible. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. It's definitely a little bit out there, but I think it's absolutely worth the listen, and such an incredible album. After that is going to be the debut solo album by Laura Jane Grace. This was such a fun album. I've been an Against Me fan for years, and this was such a cool, just like, take on the folk punk genre and like the acoustic punk genre. And Laura Jane Grace is such an incredible songwriter, and I think like her raw energy and magnetism came through on this album so well. Definitely one to check out if you're a fan of, any sort of like acoustic punk or like harder acoustic music in general. It's not all acoustic, but it definitely leans heavily in that direction compared to like her work with Against Me. And then last but not least for my honorable mentions is going to be Ensoulment by The. This was such an incredible album. Like, it took me a few listens to really get into it, but once I did, like, it was so good. And like, I really took the time to like sit down and just kind of absorb it. Just barely didn't make my top 5, and that's only because there was a couple albums that I just listened to a bit more regularly. But it's an incredible album. That one I did do a review of, so definitely go check it out. It is probably, I think, one of the best albums of the year, just from like a pure songwriting standpoint. But again, just barely didn't make it because there's a couple others that I ended up listening to a little bit more. So with my honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into the top 5. Number 5 is going to be Highly Irresponsible, the debut full-length album from Better Lovers. Now, this is such a good album. It's, I think, the best hardcore album of the year. It like borderlines on metalcore at a couple points, but it's just so high energy. It's so explosive, outside of just the cover art. But yeah, if you're a fan of, Every Time I Die or Dillinger Escape Plan or Fit for an Autopsy, you're in luck because there's former members and one current member of all 3 of those bands in this band. I really think that this was a great spiritual successor to Every Time I Die, it just goes to show like how important Jordan Buckley was to that band and how important the rhythm section was to Every Time I Die. And it's just a phenomenal album front to back. There's a couple really good standout tracks from this album. My favorite was Everything Was Put Here For Me, but Your Misplaced Self is incredible at all times. Like, it just front to back, this is such a good album. And if you like heavy, harder music in general, definitely one to check out. Number 4 is going to be Romance by Fontaines DC. Absolutely love this album. I think these guys just get better and better and better. They went a little bit less like post-punky on this album, a little bit more just like straight up alternative rock, but they do it so well. It's such a fun album. You had like the radio hits of Starburster and then my personal favorite song, which is Favorite, but like Bug, Here's the Thing, In a Modern World. Like it's such a good album. And if you like alternative music at all, if you like indie rock, like definitely go check it out. It is probably one of the best albums to come out like in this kind of subgenre in the past 20 years. And these guys, there's no stopping Fontaines DC. Like they're just gonna keep getting better and better and better, I think. I'm seeing them in April and I can't wait for their live show. And number 3 is going to be People Who Aren't There Anymore by Future Island. So this album came out right at the start of the year, is released in January, and oh my god, if this is not one of the best synth pop albums to come out in the past 20 years, like it is just absolutely incredible. The sounds that they're able to accomplish on this, they really are defining themselves within this space. I mean, it's their 7th album. They've been killing it for a long time. But I do honestly think this is probably their best album. This tracks, like the singles that came off of it were just so good, one right after the other. You had King of Sweden, you had The Tower, you had Goodbye, but even like Deep in the Night, Peach, like honestly front to back, this whole album is so dancey, it's so introspective. There's parts that just like you really feel in your soul, and then there's parts you want to just kind of sit back and absorb. It's just so fun, it's so intelligent, it's so well written, well produced. And Sam Herring's vocals are just, masterful. So if you like dance music, you like electronic music, you want something that's a little bit more restrained than what's being played in most of the clubs, definitely give this album a listen. It's an A+ for me. It's so goddamn good. All right, coming in at number 2 is going to be Highway Prayers by Billy Strings. Now, this was the year that I really discovered Billy Strings. Like I had, heard a couple tracks here and there over the past few years, but I was in line for merch at a King Gizzard concert, and the guys in front of me I was chatting with and told me like I have to get into him, and boy were they right, because oh my god, this is an amazing album. I mean, all his whole disc, I went back, listened to everything. Like everything he did is absolutely incredible. But I fell in love with this album when I first listened, and it's been on repeat ever since. It's a long album, but like the track list is just absolutely incredible. There's not a bad song on the album. My personal favorite is Stratosphere Blues. I Believe in You. It's just a heartbreakingly beautiful song, but like Gild the Lily is incredible. It's got some really fun, playful songs like Catch and Release and More Bud for You. Also, if anyone goes back and listens to my review of this album, yes, I know Catch and Release is not about drinking. I don't know how I missed that the first time. It's been pointed out to me many times, so cut me some slack. But other than that, this is such a good album. It's bluegrass, it's alt country, it's soulful. There's some blues in it. Like it's probably one of the best, just like bluegrass alt country albums I've heard in a very long time, and one that I will not get tired of listening to for a long time. And my favorite album of 2024 is The Future Is Our Way Out by Bridget Calls Me Baby. Now, if you don't know this album, you need to listen to this album. So this is the one, the album was released at the beginning of August, so I've been doing my channel for about a month now. I missed like the initial release, and then I meant to do a review of it, and I just kept having like other stuff come up. So I haven't done a full review of this album yet. So this might be a little bit longer than some of the other segments because there's a lot I want to talk about in this album, and I'll do my best to keep it kind of short. But a lot of the complaints that people had from Greta Van Fleet when they first came on the scene of like basically just copying Led Zeppelin's sound, but not being as good at like musicians or songwriters. I feel like you could potentially make those same criticisms with Bridget Calls Me Baby, but in regards to the Smiths. However, I would strongly disagree because while Bridget Calls Me Baby does clearly take a lot of influence from the Smiths, and the frontman definitely sounds like Morrissey, and especially on like a couple songs, they're doing it really, really, really fucking well. Like this album is so good. I was blown away. So I first got into Bridget Calls Me Baby with their single "We Were Never Alive." This was played on my local radio station pretty regularly, and like every time it would come on, I'd like, yeah, I like this a lot, but like I never had the time to like Shazam it or stop and like listen to it. And then finally I did, and then from there they also have Impressively Average, which is was also being played on the radio a lot, and then I kind of made the connection that they were the same band. And then finally, about a week after it was like released, I actually sat down and listened to the full album. And oh my god, like this is a like indie, post-punk, new wave leaning masterpiece. Like it's so good. The songwriting is brilliant. The frontman singing, like it's just absolutely incredible. And if you like 80s like indie rock, alt rock kind of vibes, you have to listen to this album. I'm probably alone. A lot of people I've talked to, I've like been trying to force this album down their throat, and they're like, "Yeah, it's good. Like I like it," but they don't click with it as much as I do, which is totally fair. Music resonates differently with different people, but like this album to me is such just like an amazing love letter to the 80s, which is like one of my favorite decades of music, while also still being very fresh, very relevant. It's got a lot of new sounds in it, and it's just good, like front to back. It's such a fun listen. I Want to Die in the Suburbs, Pink Palace is another just incredible song. Like I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to. Go listen to this album. If you're watching this and you follow me and you think my taste in music is even like somewhat relevant, listen to this album because it's absolutely incredible. I think this band's gonna blow up. If you get a chance, like watch some of like their live recordings, because the frontman's like vocals sound studio ready, like live. Like there's no editing. There's from what I can tell, there's no editing. There's no doctoring. Like he is just that good of a singer, and he feels like a rock star, which I feel like we're missing a lot of those these days. So anyway, Bridget Calls Me Baby, Future Is Our Way Out, my favorite album of the year. Go listen to it. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for me. Thanks so much for watching. If you could like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. I do have a Patreon. I actually do have a review of my first honorable mention of Cosmos Sheldrake up on my Patreon. So if you want to watch one of my early reviews that I didn't end up posting on my channel because it's very rough, go check it out. Then, let me know down in the comments what your 5 favorite albums of the year were. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.